What is up, guys? It is Joe. I am back. I am here to talk about the Cats, and we're going portal mode today. It is one of my favorite things to talk about, and we've got some big news in today's episode to discuss. We've got a bunch of different players K-State has been linked to, as well as someone taking the next steps towards becoming a Wildcat. We're going to talk about that and more, but before I do, let me remind you, if you like K-State athletics, if you like K-State basketball, K-State football, why not take a second or two out of your day to consider subscribing to this YouTube channel? It'll have my videos pop up on your feed more often than not, and I do appreciate it because it does help me out immensely. And if you want something else cool, I'm giving away a Lavender Quarter Zip at 2K subs, so 2,000. We're a little bit over 200 of the way there, or getting closer to that. I'll release details on how that giveaway is going to work, but it's going to be something cool to give back to you guys for all the support you've shown on the channel this year. But guys, let's get into it here. The first player, you've probably seen the report because it's a couple days old at this point, but how about my guy? One I've talked about for a minute here, one I've talked about for a long time, not just as like linked to K-State, but a dude that I am stoked about in the transfer portal. Someone I've been eyeing for a minute because I think his game would be incredible wherever he ends up going. But as I said in the previous video, his game is one of the most unique packages I've seen in the transfer portal. K-State has been linked to Mykael Brown-Jones, the UNC Greensboro forward. He's 6'8", 220. He has been linked to K-State, and he's choosing to focus on K-State and two other schools, including, I think it's Ole Miss and Pittsburgh. Those are the three schools he's looking at. He announced that a couple of days ago here during the off period, during the dead period, I should say. If I say off period, that's what I'm talking about is the dead period. Mykael Brown-Jones, I talked about him in length and his game on the channel, but just as a quick recap, the guy averaged 19 points, 8 boards last year. I mean, that's generalization. I think it was like 18.9 and 7.5 or so at UNCG. The guy was a stud. I mean, plain and simple. He's in the first team, all Summit League team. He is one of the best players in the conference. And if he gets to K-State, honestly, if he gets anywhere, it doesn't matter where he ends up, this dude will be a really, really special player. On top of his statistics, I know I've already talked about the points and the reboundings. He's been incredible at both. The dude also shoots 43.1% from three. That's massive, especially at 6'8", 220. K-State could absolutely capitalize on his skill set and bring out the incredible player. Not that it hasn't already been brought out. I don't want to make it sound like that, but the dude has the ability for a seamless transition into a first-team All-Big 12 type player and a guy that could go to the NBA. So something to watch. I tried to mention in my last video and I got sidetracked because that's how it goes. You know, I get excited about something and I forget what I'm talking about. I have a perfect scenario national championship lineup in my head working, and I'm updating the list as we go. Right now it looks like this. Doug McDaniel at the 1, Dade Ames at the 2. The 3 position is kind of open for like 4 different people. We'll talk about that today. But as of right now, it's going to be Arthur Kaluma if he returns, Mykael Brown-Jones at the 4, and then hopefully Clifford Amori at the 5. That's the goal of what I want. That team wins a national championship. My criteria has always been find 3 NBA players, put them in your starting 5, and then get the right depth pieces around them. You can win a title. Guys, that puts 5 dudes on the court at the same time. I mean, every single one of those players has NBA caliber talent and can absolutely go to work for Kansas State. So something to monitor as that happens. I would expect him to announce probably a visit right after the dead period to at least K-State or the other 2 schools first and then trickle his way through. It sounds like signs are kind of pointing towards K-State from what I've heard, and it looks like we're in a good standing to get MBJ, and I am stoked about the possible addition. I'll update you as we hear more on that front, but today's video is going to be about the wings, folks. K-State's been going after him, because they've got their point guard of the future. They've got both Doug McDaniel and Dade Ames. Those guys can play 1 or 2, whatever you need them to. That is a great backcourt. Your 3 position, it's up in the air. I mentioned that earlier. There's going to be a cast of 3 dudes, 4 dudes, different people in the portal, maybe Arthur Kaluma, different people you can slide in there. The 4 position seems like it's going to be Mykael Brown-Jones. That's not confirmed, but you at least feel good where you're at if there's only 3 teams, and one of them is Ole Miss with Chris Beard, and one of them is Pittsburgh, who is Pittsburgh. I mean, the nicest way possible, they're Pittsburgh. The 5th option is Clifford Amori. That's going to be a massive all-out blitz in terms of recruiting. So that's something to monitor as this all-star, Death Star lineup, whatever the case is. Monstars, I should have also mentioned. That's a good idea. That is my end-all, be-all. K-State needs to figure out their position with the 3. Arthur Kaluma is a natural 4. I know that the 5-out offense doesn't really count for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 type guys. You know, you get guards, you get wings, and you get usually 1 center in the offense. Maybe 2 if you have a backup big as well. But more or less, it's multi-positional guys that could play 1 through 5 wherever you need them. Not 1 through 5, but 3, 2, 1 can all play the same thing. 4 and 5 can kind of rotate out. 3, 4, 5 works. Sometimes you can drop a 2 down. It doesn't really matter that much. The point of it is, what are we going to do at that 3 position? I'm referring to it as a 3, even though it's positionless, just so you get an idea of what I'm talking about. You've got your 1 and 2 figured out. Doug and Dede. That's great. Is Arthur Kaluma coming back? Nobody knows. But I tell you what, the coaching staff is not going to wait around. They're going to wait and see what Art's decision is. If he comes back, he's a starter. That's the type of player Arthur Kaluma is. I know that there's a 50-50 reception on Art where people are saying, well, he was lazy at times or he didn't give the effort or whatever the case is. Guys, the team lost 8 games in a row. There wasn't one person on that team that I'm like, I love your effort. You were perfect the entire time. It's not a simple case to say Art didn't try, so Art shouldn't be back. That's not the case. Guy averaged 14-8 in the best league in America. I would welcome Arthur Kaluma back with wide open arms, especially considering the dudes you're putting around him. Art is an NBA player. He's going to go through the NBA draft process if he's not already. It sounds like he's kind of 50-50 about coming back. If he comes back, it sounds like it'll be at K-State. Could he enter the portal? Sure, if you recruit over him, it happens. But that being said, the staff isn't promising anybody any spots because we don't know what to guarantee and what not to. If Art's back, he's a starter, but the staff isn't going to wait around and say, okay, without question, Arthur Kaluma, we're just going to bank that you're going to be back. Because if he goes to the NBA and you don't recruit a 3 or that position of the power forward, small forward, you're screwed, to be honest. My last point on Art before I get to the guys linked to K-State. With Arthur Kaluma, he's going to be on a team where he doesn't have to be the primary option or necessarily the secondary option, but he has the ability to be the best player on the court at all times. You think about this. Doug McDaniel, Data Ames create space. You have to guard them. We didn't really have that last year. There wasn't really a reliable guard that you needed to be up in their face constantly. You could kind of sag off a little bit, with the exception of Tyler Perry. I mean, obviously it wasn't always a 1-to-1 ratio in that sense, but you didn't have anyone spreading out the paint, essentially. Your wings, like David Gasson, isn't a three-point shooter. Jarrell Colbert wasn't a three-point shooter. Art was, but his three-point shot took it long enough that you could close out fast enough. It wasn't really a creating space environment, which is kind of the entire point of the 5-out offense. That wasn't set up to succeed. This year, you think about this, because this is one I've kicked around a lot. Doug and Day create space. I'm referring to this in my hypothetical lineup that hasn't happened yet, but it could happen. Michael Brown-Jones absolutely creates space. Guy shoots 40+% from 3 at 6'8", 220. The dude can do whatever you need. That's a space creator. Clifford Amore, no one can guard. I'm just going to be straight up with you. There's not a center in the world that's better than Clifford Amore in one-on-one situations. You'll get a Zach Edey that's bigger. You'll get some guys that are more athletic. If you twist my arm, I might be able to list one, but I doubt it. There's not really a situation where Clifford Amore isn't absolutely body to body. Like, you cannot let that guy just chill. So that leaves one guy on the court. You're saying the worst of the 5 players on the court is going to defend Arthur Kaluma, a 6'7", 220 power forward that's going to the NBA in the next year or two? That does not make sense at all. The worst defender in the starting 5 is probably going to guard Data Ames in that hypothetical, Arthur Kaluma in that hypothetical. You can't really afford to put a scrub on the court that can't defend because any one of those 5 guys can absolutely sauce you. That's my mini rant about Art. I'll get back to the topic at hand. Just wanted to go to bat for my man Art if it does happen. In case Art does not come back, he goes to the league, he goes to the transfer portal, whatever the case is, K-State is doing their due diligence with the wing position. And honestly, even if Art comes back, it's still good to recruit more people. So K-State has been mentioned with a couple of different players. On this list, I've got 3 that have already been contacted and are getting heavy pursuit. And then I've got 1 that I'm interested in that I think will absolutely get heavy pursuit if it hasn't already been mentioned. The first player up, sophomore wing Filip Borovichinen. The dude is a transfer from Arizona. He's a stud. However, he hasn't quite put it all together in terms of college basketball yet, just because of a lack of minutes. Obviously, you play at a school like Arizona. There's 1,000 dudes that are really, really good on the roster. Filip Borovichinen came out of Serbia. He's a Serbian-born athlete. And I want to read his stats a little bit because they're deceiving from his game, but they're also not the end-all, be-all. Stats are stats, but they aren't always the make of a perfect player. Off the bat, he's 6'9", 225. He kind of has a Johnny Furphy build with a little bit more of a developed physical standpoint from the body point. He's not, tall and skinny, I guess is the best way to say that, kind of like Furphy is because he's a little bit further in his career. Also, you grow up in Serbia. You're playing professional basketball a lot of times since you're 16. Maybe 14, you go to the big league or the Euro League or whatever the case is. There's a lot of different split levels in Europe that you can play good basketball and really develop against grown men. Filip is a good player, man. He's got talent. I question a little bit of certain things that I need to see to believe, and that's kind of the issue. The dude is not a three-point shooter, and that's fine. I know that not a ton of these guys on this list at the 3 position or at the that kind of small forward position, they don't have to be great shooters, especially if your 4 is a guy like Michael Brown-Jones that can step out and shoot the 3. This can be a spot you get away with athleticism, with talent, with skill, whatever the case is. K-State is one of 4 teams that are really going after the kid. It's K-State, California, Utah State, and Ole Miss. Once again, K-State's the best program of the 4. I mean, Ole Miss might throw money at him, especially after hearing what they might have offered Chris Beard. Allegedly, it was a lot of money. But Borovichinen last season averaged 2.3 points per game and 1.6 rebounds per game, but he only had 5.6 minutes per game and played action, I think, in 20 games. So he really didn't have a big role. I mean, I think he played less minutes than a guy like Dorian Finister did last season, so it's not something to go off of. Coming out of Serbia in the class of 2022, he was the 106th ranked player available, the 25th ranked small forward available, and the number one player in the, I guess, country of Serbia. I usually say the state of blank. In Serbia, he was the number one player. He's got some upside. The questions I have about his game are the three-point shooting, because he didn't do that really at all in Serbia, and he hasn't done that in college basketball yet. A lot of times, especially for some reason, those, the European basketball players, like Serbia has a ton of good players. You have a place like Slovenia with Luka Doncic. You have a ton of studs that come out of that EuroLeague system that can really, really shoot the basketball. I'm not saying that's everybody. I'm not saying that's Borovichinin, but it is something to consider that there's a lot of talented shooters from that area of the world. Last season at Arizona, he attempted 12 threes, went 0 for 12, didn't hit a three, and then also, from most of the highlights I saw with him playing in Serbia, didn't see many three-point shots fall. I don't know if he attempted one in the couple of packages I saw, but he does have the ability to do it. I just haven't seen it happen. So that's something that I caution fans from getting a little bit too overkill about yet. Not saying it can't snap together, not saying K-State needs him to be a starter, but it is something where he's a sophomore, he's young, he hasn't played a lot. He's a very green player, I would say. Like, his best basketball is down the road. Like, it's years ahead. But once he hits that, he can be an absolute stud. So, wanted to get my thoughts out there real quick before I moved on to the next player. Borovichinin will be a good one to follow. K-State's one of 4 teams very heavily interested. Micah Peavy from TCU. Quick caveat, we know Micah Peavy. We know about Micah Peavy. We know his game. Spent the first season of his career at Texas Tech, then 3 at TCU. Solid player. I don't know that he was ever really option number 1 for TCU because they have Emmanuel Miller in a very, very similar role. But Peavy was really special and electric in transition and on defense. That's the biggest thing that separates him from the rest of this list. Peavy is a 6'8", 215-pound wing. Last season with TCU, we averaged 10.9 points, 4.9 rebounds, and 2.6 assists per game. He shot 31% from 3, but he did shoot a lot of threes, so I don't want to make that sound like that's that awful. I don't want to make it sound like that. But like I said, his biggest thing from an athletic standpoint is that he has great energy on the court. Defensively, great energy in transition, attacking, and he's quicker than most of the guys that are matched up with him because of his immediate speed with the basketball. He's a quick basketball player for his size, and he beats a lot of guys at that 3 position, at that kind of small forward, power forward spot. He has the ability to be a mismatch there. That being said, everybody's reached out to him. Kansas, Houston, every Big 12 team you can think of basically has reached out to the kid. So it'd be a heavy recruit, but it is someone to mention that K-State's kind of kicked around the idea of. So Micah Peavy is more than an option, but I just wanted to put him out there in this video in case talks go further along. He puts out a cut down list, something to monitor going forward. The next player on the list is Quadir Copeland from Syracuse. He's one of the guys that commented on Doug McDaniel's Instagram post when he officially committed, along with Clifford Amore, along with Patrick Ngamba. He's a 6'6" sophomore, he's 200 pounds. And his game is, I will say, unfinished at the moment, but I don't mean that so negatively, and hear me out. The dude relies on his athleticism and his transition game a lot more than maybe he should. I'm not saying that he can't. He does it because he can get away with it, and he has the ability to do that. So do you fault great players for using their ability? No, I don't want to make it sound like that by any means, but a lot of his footwork, a lot of his game from a technical sense isn't very, it's not very technically sound. But that being said, the dude is the most athletic person on the court out there. I mean, Buddy Rich would give him an argument. I don't want to make it sound like Buddy's not that dude for sure. But Quadir Copeland as a wing guard, I should say, would be a really solid player to add. My main area of concern is that when I say his game isn't technically sound, he's not great off the dribble. He's not really great catching and shooting. Those were both weaknesses listed in the Portal Reports video showing different percentages. He struggled with both. But he's a young player. He's uber athletic, and Jerome Tang and the coaching staff can get the best out of him. But you look through his highlights, he's jumping over dudes, he's posterizing people, he's running out in transition, he's an incredible defender. So there's aspects of his game that you really, really like and can absolutely make work. On the list of people recruiting him, it's kind of a wide array of teams. It's Kansas State, McNeese State, Memphis, Mississippi State, NC State, and Kansas, which is kind of an interesting wild card in there as well. 2 teams from the Sunflower State competing for Quadir Copeland. His athleticism was off the charts. His ability is definitely there. He just might need some technically sound stuff to improve his game. That's my only caveat. But he averaged 9.6 points per game, 4.6 rebounds, and 2.8 assists per game this season. He does have the best passing vision of the wing guards I'm mentioning here. So he's definitely someone to mention, but I did want to add him because it sounds like K-State is in that recruiting battle. The 4th and final player on this list I want to quickly talk about, and I'll keep it quick. I know I'm extending this video a little bit too long, so I will get in and out here fast. This player hasn't been reached out to by Kansas State, but I had reason to believe that they're going to be in on this race because my guy, Tremont Mark, had K-State as a finalist last season. I'm not going to lie, if you go back and look, I made a video on Tramon Mark. I was kind of skeptical. I think he had some health reasons, if I'm not mistaken. I could be completely wrong. And I also don't know if I thought of it as like, this guy's upside isn't really what I want for our first or second commit. I'm stupid. I am 100% stupid. The dude immediately proved me wrong at Arkansas. The 6'6", 185-pound junior wing guard was a finalist for K-State last season. He had 4 teams, I think, featured. But he had some really nice splits this past season. 16.2 points per game, 4.3 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists on 36.4% shooting from 3, something that I absolutely love. And he's a lefty. Jerome Tang loves lefties, folks. If you haven't figured that out yet, guys that are in the portal that are lefty shooters, watch for a Kansas State reach out. He's got a little bit of what Quadir Copeland has in the sense that some of his shots, he's got a little bit sloppy footwork because he's capable of hitting those shots, but he's much further along in terms of a developed, multifaceted game. He's a 3-level scorer, and he can do anything you need him to. That's going to be a high recruiting battle, so that's not one that's going to be 4 or 5 teams interested. That's a 15, 20 teamer. But guys, I am going to finish this up here. Once again, a reminder to subscribe to the YouTube channel for more of this type of content. I appreciate each and every one of you for supporting the channel, for supporting me as we continue on this journey. I appreciate it. We hit the 1-year anniversary of the channel like 3 or 4 days ago. I think April 4th was my first video on the channel. So I appreciate all the support this year. And I'm excited for a second year on the channel with you guys as we continue to talk about the Cats, baby. Have a wonderful rest of your day. I will talk to you soon. Go Cats.